All right, first she lost her voice, and then her political allies, and then her Brexit deal. And there may be more bad news to come for the UK's embattled Prime Minister Theresa May. In just about 2 hours, she faces another crucial vote, now this time on taking a no-deal Brexit off the table. The UK and the rest of the EU were left to reflect on after another humiliating defeat for Theresa May, after her Brexit deal was crushed by an overwhelming majority in the House of Commons last night. And in case you needed a reminder, there are just 16 days to go before Britain leaves the EU. And there's still barely any sign of compromise on anything on either side of the channel. Right here in Strasbourg, anticipation of tonight's vote, reaction to last night's defeat, and the prospect of a Brexit extension dominated the day. Let's take a look.
I don't see any better solution than the withdrawal agreement with all the clarifications given. So now, this is where we are. Of course, we will remain in this position to want to do as little harm as possible in a very harmful process, because Brexit is very harmful to the United Kingdom and to the European Union.
Again and again and again, we are discussing in the European Council mainly about Brexit and not about China, not about the trade to Trump, not about the real issues which are important for the citizens of this European Union. That's why we cannot continue like this.
Let's stop bashing London. There are experts in this House who continuously bash London. Here's one, Mr. Farage. There's one, Mr. Verhofstadt. There's no difference in their approach, in their criticism to London. Secondly, I think it is time that the Commission finally admits that they have some responsibility for Brexit.
It seems to me that Britain seems to be spinning out of control instead of being back in control. And I think that the only reasonable way, Mr. Henkel, to solve this problem, and you didn't talk about that, unfortunately, is that there is cross-party cooperation in British politics the fastest as possible, a compromise, a common view between Labour and the Conservatives. How you want to solve an existential problem like Brexit if it is used by both parties to kill each other? For them, Brexit is a bullet in a weapon.
Today, we are in the hands of the British political system. They should tell us where they want to go from now. The solution will have to come from London.
We've had enough. We've seen the snarling anger towards our country of Mr. Verhofstadt, the bureaucratic intransigence of Mr. Barnier, the constant stream of insults that come from Mr. Tusk, and we're of one mind. We don't want to be governed by you.
Now, Europe's chief negotiator was also outspoken during that debate, saying the treaty negotiated this week is the only treaty available to the UK. And following the debate, Michel Barnier sat down with Euronews' political affairs program, Uncut. Here's part of that exclusive interview with Daniel Cohn-Bendit.
Do you believe in any deal after all what happened? Frankly, do you believe in a deal?
But the point is to know what the UK wants. It is my answer to this question depends clearly on what the answer of the UK side, what they want. If they want to leave the EU in an orderly manner, if they want to leave the EU as decided by the Brexit referendum in an orderly manner, that means that this treaty is the only one possible. The only deal.
Can you renegotiate something?
No, we can't.
Page 120.
No, we cannot renegotiate because it's not our document. It is a common, agreed document with the UK government. So it is the best and the only deal possible if the UK wants to leave the EU in an orderly manner. The other option is to leave without a deal. In that case, this document will be no longer useful. But my personal feeling as a negotiator is to protect the interest of the EU side, the EU business, the EU citizens, the EU local communities, the farmers and so on, and also in the interest of the UK side. We need this deal because it's the only way to organize and to limit the consequences of the Brexit.
But what will happen now? They said they refused the deal, they refused the agreement on the agreement on the agreement, they refuse everything.
Generally speaking, Daniel, I do not like the speculations and the speculators. So I don't want to speculate. Let me just say that now the impasse where we are has to be solved by the UK side. Huh?
And which sign did I give you?
No, they are waiting for a new vote tonight and a third vote tomorrow. The second vote will be about to vote against the no deal.
Yes.
Okay, and tomorrow to ask for a prolongation of the negotiations. And the answer for the EU side will be immediately for what?
Yes, but for what? You know, prolongation. I can't understand. I'm a EU citizen. Prolongate for what?
It could be a technical prolongation because if the deal is voted, they need some more weeks to implement.
But then they vote the deal.
Okay, they have to first of all to vote the deal. It is a prerequisite. Could be a tactical, a political prolongation. In that case, I know the answers and the reaction of the EU side, the EU leaders, the EU Parliament. What for? Why do you need a prolongation? So it is for organizing a new referendum, new elections or not? I cannot answer to this question at the place of the UK government.
But we have a problem. We will have the election, European election. But can you imagine organizing an election in Great Britain for the European Parliament because they have to leave?
The only point is, at this stage, the answer to the prolongation will be the responsibility of the EU leaders by unanimity, European Council, next week or a little bit later. The only legal point I want to mention, to inform you, is that if the prolongation is long enough to go after the European election end of May, at that moment, at that time, the UK will be a member state with all the rights and the obligation of a member state.
So they will be obliged to.
In particular, let me just mention this point, in particular to protect the citizen rights of the EU citizens living in the UK. And these citizens have the right to vote. The same for the British citizens in EU. So if the UK will be at that time member of the EU, it will have to organize the European election.
Well, you can watch the entire interview with Michel Barnier tomorrow night on Uncut with Daniel Cohn-Bendit. That's at 10:30 p.m. CET on Euronews. All right, joining us right now in the studio with some reaction is Nigel Farage, British MEP from the Brexit Party with the Europe of Freedom and Direct Democracy Group, and Marietje Schaake, Dutch MEP with the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. All right, I'll start with you, Nigel. This is what Mr. Barnier was holding up there.
Yeah.
The deal. It's final.
No,
it's not going to change.
Let's just get this right. It's not a deal, it's a treaty. And this is something that's been underestimated. So what the House of Commons was asked to do last night was to vote to leave one treaty to sign up to a new treaty. And this treaty, in many ways, would have bound the UK in. It would have meant taxation without representation. Even the Lisbon Treaty had Article 50 within it, by which we could leave. With this, there was actually no way out. So the House of Commons was quite right to reject it.
And that's the best that the UK is going to get from the EU. Do you believe that?
Monsieur Barnier's intention from day one was to keep the United Kingdom as closely tied to the EU single market and customs union as he possibly could. He's led the Prime Minister, cleverly, down the garden path, and we have said no to it. Now, I think logically, in the short term, the only way Brexit gets delivered is we leave on WTO terms. In the longer term, I think what we all want, really, is a genuine free trade agreement, but not membership of a political club, and that's what that document did.
Marietje, this is the best deal that is going to come out of the EU. We saw a last-minute, last-ditch effort from Theresa May. None of that is going to happen. I think Michel Barnier has made that clear. And you think that, indeed, this is it. This is the last night. If the UK doesn't accept this, they're not going to get anything more.
This is the best deal that's on the table. It's been negotiated by Mr. Barnier, but on behalf of 27 sovereign states versus one state that is in complete disarray. And I think it is true that this is what's available. The clarifications have been given. The addendum has been given. More is not possible. So let's see what comes out of London tonight and then what the consequences will be. Because if people don't want a no-deal Brexit, they don't want this withdrawal agreement, then maybe they don't want Brexit.
Well, the interesting thing is this. There's a very big difference between what the people want and what Parliament wants. It's perfectly clear.
You don't think Parliament represents the people?
No, not at all.
Oh.
And that's the fascination of where we are now. 77% of MPs voted Remain, and nearly all of them still maintain that position. So there's a really big disconnect opening up here. What is obvious tonight is that the UK Parliament will vote to take no deal off the table, although, and this is crucial, it doesn't change the legislation that is still in effect, so we still could leave on those terms.
But why not do a second referendum then if you don't think the Parliament represents the people?
Well, it doesn't at all, no. And that's why we had a referendum in the first place. And the frustration, the annoyance, is they are willfully not carrying out the will of the people. But what's happening in the country is really interesting. And that is that now, no deal is by far the most popular option. You know, the last opinion polls, about 45% want to leave with no deal. And I can't see, unless there is going to be a complete betrayal of the Brexit vote by the UK government and Parliament, that we can do anything else but simply
Nigel,
leave in 16 days' time.
You would rather a crash out?
No, I'd rather leave.
Yeah, but that would mean a no deal, which would mean
I'm sorry,
crash out.
you are using words like crash out. I'm using words like clean break, independence. So you can view this how you want to. Actually, and here's the truth of it, I mean, we today were voting on a lot of legislation, getting ready for a no-deal Brexit, in terms of banking, flows, aeroplanes. Most of those scare stories are out of the way, and I don't think there's much to fear, frankly.
You say it's scarce. I'm going to get to you, Marietje, but you say scare stories. But
yeah.
We're talking about assurances that the UK wants from the EU. What assurances can you give to the people of the United Kingdom that this leaving nicely, as you would put it, is not going to cause economic chaos? They're not going to suffer from a long period of time.
We'll be leaving the European Union, we'll be leaving the single market and leaving the customs union. And they are all the things that we debated ad infinitum in the referendum, the biggest democratic exercise in the history of our nation, and we made a decision. We backed it up in a general election, 85% of people voting for parties that supported respecting the result, and then 500 MPs voted for Article 50, which says we leave on the 29th with or without a deal.
Marietje, what do you think of what Nigel is saying on this point, that people in the UK actually want a no deal, that is the best option for them?
Well, you know, I'm surprised to hear on the one hand that the referendum was the biggest democratic exercise ever. On the other hand, that the Parliament doesn't represent the people, even though the elections actually confirmed the Brexit.
Because they lied.
Well, there was a lot of lying going on, wasn't there?
They said they would respect the result, and they're not respecting it. It's quite simple.
Okay, Marietje, what about extension? What about the view of extending this from the EU's point of view?
Yeah, well, I mean, extending for what, I think, is the key question. If you look at the chaos that we see in London now, the disagreement, only agreement on what people don't want, then you have to ask yourself, what would the real question be? And what would the reason for extension be? And then also there has to be unanimity for that. And I think one question would be, is have you talked to, for example, your friends in Italy, asking them to veto that kind of extension?
I think what's interesting, without me doing that, is I was quite shocked this morning. I was quite shocked meeting Michel Barnier and the Conference of Presidents. There's been an assumption in the UK that if we ask for an extension, the EU would just say, yeah, that's fine.
Well,
what I was getting today...
We don't know that.
No. I'm saying I think we're wrong on that. What I got today was a very strong impression, and it backs up what you're saying.
I'm asking you whether you've asked your Italian friends about it.
I think
I'd be very happy for it to be vetoed. Very happy indeed.
I think the question of the extension of Article 50, as you were both pointing out, we would like to know what the rest of the EU thinks about that, because, you know, there's a lot of questions on whether it should be a short kind of extension or a long kind of extension. All right, we did try to find out what MEPs here in Strasbourg thought about that, about extending the Brexit deadline. Our correspondent, Shona Murray, went out to talk to some of them here in Strasbourg, and she's joining us now live. So, Shona, what is the mood from MEPs that you talked to about an extension?
Well, I think, first of all, when you speak to some of the MEPs, they were expressing their frustration at the level of the defeat last night in the House of Commons. There had been some optimism that perhaps Theresa May was able to get this re-engineered withdrawal agreement across the line. After that, the next question on their lips was an extension, the inevitable nature of a request for an extension and what that would look like and whether they would consider supporting it. And they said they would, many of them, depending on for what it was for. Emotionally speaking, they said they want to get, finished with the business of Brexit as soon as possible because it was, creating an obstruction in terms of the European Parliament elections. But they mostly said they would be willing to give the UK an extension just to prevent a no-deal scenario. So take a listen to what they said.
If the UK want a substantial period of time to set out a new approach, I think we should give them that time. Irrespective of the European Parliament election, that's a secondary issue for me. What's more important is to see if we can resolve this issue in a timely way.
We have to find a way to come to a solid solution. And Theresa May should, and that will be asked by the European heads of state and government, she has to demonstrate in which way she would like to guarantee to find a solution.
Giving them some extra weeks, if that could do anything to at least see to that we've tried all possible options, it would be reasonable to do it.
I think we all would agree that every possibility at all should be given to the British, even an extension if so. But what we really need now, as in really need now, is to have some kind of justification for this extension.
Honestly, if we are going for an extension, I believe that if it is a short extension, I think it's pointless because we will end up going around in circles, as I have seen happening in the past days, weeks and months. But if it is a longer extension, then everyone needs to understand what would be the purpose of a longer extension.
Is what kind of an extension would they give into? If it was just a few more weeks to get the withdrawal agreement across the line, I think most people would be quite reticent to approve that because there wouldn't be anything clear that would have changed in terms of the circumstances in the House of Commons. If there was a request, if the UK decided to change its red lines, perhaps Theresa May spoke to the SNP and the Labour Party, then there's definitely an open-mindedness for that. Talks of a 21-month extension creates its own major complications with regard to the European Parliament and the impact on that. But definitely, even though there is frustration, you could definitely get a sense that there's pragmatism, that MEPs, no matter what side of the divide they're on, do want to help the UK. Because, of course, the impact for no deal would be huge on the European Union, not just economically, but also in terms of citizens and in terms of the relations between the two sides in the future. Tessa.
All right, thank you for that, correspondent Shona Murray and the MEPs that she talked to today. Now, if we hear just a taste of it, of what MEPs think, and Marietje, you pointed out that it could be a pointless exercise if you extend, and for what is a good question. And at the same time, Jean-Claude Juncker said, you know what, the possibility of a no Brexit is on the table. So if we take out all the negotiations, no more negotiations, we're left with no deal or no Brexit. Are those the two options on the table now?
It looks like it, unless we get a proposal of sorts, for example, a second referendum, which I suppose you would support as one of the biggest democratic exercises.
I think that's going to be the demand.
Yeah.
I think when Theresa May goes next Thursday, that's what's going to be asked for. And the problem for her is if she was to go for the option of an extension with a second referendum, I think she fears that would be the final straw for her own Conservative Party. But I do agree that's what's going to be asked for. Yeah. We don't need it, of course. We've had the referendum, but I do think that the screws are going to be on Mrs May next Thursday.
And what if 60% votes against Brexit?
Well, they're not going to. I mean, if we have another referendum...
If they do, then.
No, but let's say they do, just for thought exercise for the moment.
Thought exercise is you promise the people... You have this vote, we'll implement it. You back it up at a general election. You then have 500 MPs vote for Article 50. There have been 3 major events here supporting Brexit. The idea that you don't like the result, so you rerun it, is fundamentally anti-democratic and wrong. We're not a banana republic. We are the United Kingdom, and we should honour this result.
Yeah, but I mean, in the process of honouring the result, which is not an entirely clear process, if you look at what's going on in London right now. So what if tonight there's a vote against a no-deal Brexit? Then there's no support for the withdrawal agreement between the 28 member states. Mm-hmm. So then there would be a referendum and possibly an election.
Well, tonight's just to be clear on this, tonight's vote, it's symbolic, but it's not actually, in legal terms, hasn't any force at all. Right now, there is still an EU Withdrawal Act in place, which honours Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, and it says, the law of our land is, we are leaving on March the 29th, with or without a deal. The only person that can change that is Theresa May. She might, but at the moment, we're set to leave.
Is there anything that could change in the United Kingdom that would make the EU reach out again and say, OK, we're going to give a little bit more?
But hold on, why would the EU have to reach out? I think the UK has to reach out with a concrete question. So if political parties together making up a majority, because they still represent the people, and would have a specific question, then that could be a possible negotiation. But so far, the result of the negotiation is right there at the table, and it has taken a long time. Now, if people don't want it, that's their choice too. I mean, I look at it with pain in my heart. I think it is a complete unraveling. I think it will go down into history as one of the biggest disasters for the UK and the EU. So I look at this with a lot of pain. Of course, we differ greatly in opinion. You also think that Donald Trump deserves a Nobel Prize, so it shouldn't be a surprise that we
more than
disagree.
Obama ever did, certainly, yes.
We disagree on many things.
I tell you what we're going to agree.
Oh, well.
And that is that next Thursday night is a major moment because actually, if Mrs May comes and meekly asks for an extension without a plan and isn't able to offer a second referendum because of the implications for her own party, you may find, with or without my help, that there is a veto there, and then we will be leaving.
With or without your help, but let's talk about it.
We will be leaving with no deal.
Let's talk about that. I think it's so interesting because you asked for it so clearly today, and there's a speculation that you have reached out or through your teammates.
That you will run for that.
There's so much speculation about what I say and don't do.
Why don't you clarify in person right now?
I haven't spoken to anybody yet, but I'm thinking about it very carefully. And you've encouraged me. Thank you.
Would you answer this directly then, Nigel? If you extend beyond the European parliamentary elections that the UK has to run, will you run again?
Oh, yes.
You will?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Of course.
No question. I mean, I'd rather not.
All right.
I'd rather not. I'd rather we got Brexit and I left the world of politics. But
all right.
if we're betrayed, I'm back.